I feel like there's a lot of slows in the game, especially with items like Rylai's and Iceborne. On top of that, there are very limited options for slow resist. Is there any chance that's going to change? Probably not. It's unlikely. So I was already talking earlier in the game. I was talking earlier today about how if you just make heals easy to counter, then you just have to make healing OP to counter that counter. It's the same thing with slows. So there was a time when swiftness boots were the best boot you could buy. They were cheap enough and powerful enough that everybody was going swiftness boots. And that was actually really, really degrading to the. For those of you who don't know, swiftness boots counter slows. That was really, really degrading to the gameplay in the game in general because it made it so as a designer you couldn't tune a slow to be effective at doing what it was supposed to do for a champion's kit because your opponents just had swiftness boots and then the slow would become useless. Well, not useless, but significantly worse, right? And so we were having this discussion back then of like, hey, we either need to do something about swiftness boots, like make them not the go-to purchase in every game, or we're probably going to have to start making slows stronger to account for the fact that they can't fulfill their function with swiftness boots in the game. And an example of what I mean by that, not fulfilling its function, is as an example, Victor's W needs to slow a certain amount to make that stun on Victor's W hit the slow zone that he puts down. And if you stay in it, you get stunned. That needs to slow a certain amount to make the stun a certain amount of reliable. The second everybody can just trivially counter that slow, suddenly the stun is significantly less reliable, and suddenly Victor's W stops becoming a functional spell unless we buff the slow, right? So it's actually like pretty intentional that like slows are like present a lot in the game. They tend to be really good for being a crowd control effect that is not like super OP. So like stuns are OP. They prevent you from dashing, they prevent you from moving. If you get stunned, it's very easy to just straight up die, right? Slows on the other hand, they keep you there, but like they don't do anything to most dashes. They don't stop you from casting spells, right? And so it's a way to do like crowd control that sets up spells and feels good and things like that without just making it like a guaranteed outcome to a fight. And so slows end up being like a pretty good like small power CC that like creates a lot of like good variance and different outcomes for fights. And so it's generally pretty dangerous though than to be like, hey, you can just counter them all the time. Now, that said, it's totally fine if there was more slow counters, right? Like if there was more slow counters, like I think that would be fine. It's just the difference between like being able to get them every game and just being able to get them sometimes, right? And it's possible as an example that maybe Swiftness Boots should be even better at countering slows. Because the problem with Swiftness Boots wasn't even that they were good at countering slows when we had to nerf them, it was that they were just good at everything. And so you would just buy them because they were cheap, fast, and then the slow countering was like gravy. And so maybe actually Swiftness Boots should even be better at countering slows, but still, keep them kind of niche.